Commitment 2017. Omaha decides. KETV News Watch 7 and News Talk 1290 KOIL present a debate in the race for mayor of Omaha. Incumbent Gene Stothert. Challenger Heath Mello. Here is KETV News Watch 7's Rob McCartney.
And good evening and welcome to this Commitment 2017 special Omaha Decides the Race for Mayor. Pleased to be joined tonight by Omaha Mayor Gene Stothert and challenger former State Senator Heath Mello. Thank you both for taking part in the forum so close to Tuesday's election. All right, before we begin, I want to outline the format for you. Both candidates will get an opening and a closing statement. We will alternate which candidate gets the first chance to respond to each question, and each candidate will get time for rebuttal. Toward the end of the hour, we may eliminate rebuttals to the last question to ensure we have time for the closing statements. In addition, we want to hear from you. On the KETV News Watch 7 Facebook page, submit your question to the candidates, or on Twitter, use the hashtag #OmahaDecides. The other questions will come from our panelists, KETV News Watch 7's Julie Cornell and Matt Tompkins of News Talk 1290 KOIL. A coin flip determined the order of opening and closing statements. We're going to begin with Mayor Stothert. Mayor Stothert.
Thank you, and thank you to KETV and to COIL, Julie and Matt and Rob. Thank you so much for hosting this tonight. We have certainly come a long way in the last 4 years. Omaha is a safer community than it was 4 years ago, using all of our 7 crime indexes. The budget is under control, the economy is growing, and we have modernized City Hall. Yet you can't make great accomplishments by yourself. And I want to personally thank all of the business and philanthropic, all of our community members and community groups that my administration and myself have worked so hard with over the last 4 years. We have changed the face and the spirit of this city. Things are going in the right direction, and we have the momentum. And I am running for re-election to be your mayor for the next 4 years because I want to keep this progress and this momentum going. And I'm looking forward to the questions that we'll be answering this evening. Thank you.
Mayor Stothert, thank you. Senator Mello.
Well, thank you, Rob, and thank you, KETV and 1290 COIL for hosting tonight's debates, and obviously Matt and Julie as well. Look forward to that conversation. I simply want to say hello to my wonderful wife, Catherine, and our 2 little babies at home, Angelina and John Francis, in regards to them spending time with their grandparents tonight watching the debate. I'm running for mayor because I truly believe we can be a better city, and I believe that we need to begin immediately building the Omaha of the future. And in my mind, the Omaha of the future is a more welcoming, connected, and innovative city. Over the course of this campaign, I think it's become very clear that there's a stark contrast between Mayor Stothert and myself, both in regards to style and approach, but also in regards to priorities. Stylistically, I've proven myself in the legislature, working with Republicans, Democrats, and Independents to be a consensus builder, be someone who can bring people together, unifying people behind a big vision and solving problems. During the course of this campaign, priorities like fixing our crumbling infrastructure, addressing response times, dealing with annexation, and creating the jobs and the economy of the future is what I think sets us apart moving forward. Thank you so much and look forward to the conversation tonight.
Senator Mello, thank you. Another coin flip determined who will be the first to answer the opening question. It will go to Heath Mello from Julie Cornell. Julie?
Thanks, Ron. Omaha police response times and also the use of police resources have been criticized recently. Are these criticisms warranted, and how can you make Omaha a safer city?
Well, Julie, that is a great question, and I believe the criticisms are warranted because I've mentioned these issues earlier this year in regards to Omaha Police Department statistics that are very clear and are not refutable. The facts are these. Violent crime is up and overall response times are up. This is something that just today in the Omaha World Herald reiterated, that response times overall as a city over the last 4 years are up. I feel to some extent that those are issues that need to be addressed moving forward. Mayor Stothert's had the time in office to be able to address those, and they've actually gotten worse, not better. In respects to police services or police resources in the middle of the campaign, I can tell you the one thing that I will not do as mayor is politicize City Hall to the point of utilizing anyone, whether it's a civil service and or a political appointee in regards to helping out my political campaign, particularly in lights of what we've seen over the last 2 weeks. I think as mayor, I have an obligation to be able to bring people together and address crime in a very comprehensive approach, not just in regards to increasing public safety resources, which we know is very needed, both in frontline officers as well as a 5th Police Precinct, but also addressing crime at its root causes by trying to create a citywide blueprint in regards to creating living wage jobs, access to behavioral health care, reliable public transportation, and quality affordable housing.
Thank you, Senator. Mayor Stothert.
Yes, Omaha is a safer city. It absolutely is than it was 4 years ago. And all of the 7 crime indexes that we use show that. Response times for priority 1 calls have actually increased in the last 4 years. Chief Schmatter has said that, and the World Herald has said that. You know, you can talk about in your ads about streetcars, but when you try to put fear in the minds of the citizens of Omaha, making it sound like Omaha is a more dangerous city, that is going too far. And the chief of police has spoken out several times. In fact, he just put out a letter to the citizens of Omaha on their Facebook just yesterday, really condemning what these ads are saying and try to put fear in people's minds. We have added 56 more police officers. We are at the highest number that we have been in the history of Omaha. We are adding a 5th police precinct, and we have added more resources. And as we have annexed the city and added 27,000 more people to the city of Omaha, every annexation package is approved by the chief of police and the fire chief before they go to the city council. And we have increased the number of officers. 2 per 1,000 exceeded that with the number of people we are annexing into the city. And so we will continue with our unrelentless effort to keep our city more and more safe, working with the police chief, working with our great police department, and not misleading the public in criticizing openly our police department with numbers that are just not accurate.
Senator Mello, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Well, with all due respect to the mayor, I read Chief Schmatter's open letter, and I'm grateful for his kind remarks about me and his working relationship in the legislature. But what wasn't in that letter was the word annexation and/or the claim that overall response times are down. This is just a disagreement that Mayor Stothert and I have, and the data is on my side. Overall response times over the last 4 years are up. Violent crime in the city overall over the last 4 years is up. This is not something I've made up. It's simply on the Omaha Public Police Department's website.
Mayor Stothert, 30 seconds.
I would disagree with Mr. Mello. His numbers are not accurate, that he's trying to get out there with his commercials that the firefighters are doing for him and attack our police department and mislead them with inaccurate numbers. Overall, response times on priority 1 calls have improved since I have been mayor. Violent crime has also improved. If you look at rapes, for example, in the 4 years that I have been mayor, they have actually been reduced and not increased. So let's talk about the facts. I get my data from the chief of police. Heath Mello gets it from Twitter.
Mayor Stothert, thank you. Our next question goes to Mayor Stothert. It comes from News Talk 1290 KOIL's Matt Tompkins. Matt?
Every mayor has promised to fix the roads and improve things like snow removal. So what makes your promise different?
Well, I think the one thing that I can say is I have proven in the last 4 years what I have done, and not just what I am going to do in the future. But as far as roads go, I remember when I was on city council, we had $2.8 million in 2010 for road resurfacing. I have doubled that amount since I have been mayor. We have 5,000 lane miles of road in Omaha. We have surveyed them, and we have 300 lane miles of unimproved roads. We have developed a plan, and our plan is more aggressive than ever been in the past as far as addressing the conditions of our infrastructure. Now, you know, it's taken about 50 years for the roads to get into the conditions that they are now, and we can't fix them all in 4 years, but we have developed a plan, and we developed a plan with community input and with stakeholders' input of what we are going to do now and in the future, and we have a plan. We are going to be doing more roads this summer than we have done in the past 10 years in the city of Omaha because we are making it a priority, and we will eventually catch up, and then we will put our roads on a maintenance plan. But to say that we don't have a plan for it is just false. Snow removal is another thing. We solicited a lot of community input. We had teams that we solicited input, and we asked people what their expected level of service was. And after we found out all that information, we've made changes in our snow plan. And I think people have really seen a result. Not only that, but hiring more people in public works and buying more equipment. We've already done that. And I think people have seen a lot of change and a lot of improvement.
Senator Mello.
Well, I think it's very clear that if there was a plan created by the Stothert administration, it's fallen woefully short. A plan in regards to grinding up people's streets across the city in regards to making homeowners and property owners pay to repave their own streets is not a plan that I believe is good for our city moving forward. I'm the only candidate right now running for mayor who's put out a very public plan to address our crumbling infrastructure, both in the short term and the long term, utilizing more investment funding that we're going to receive from the state of Nebraska, as well as funding that we know is available moving forward through a bill that we created last year with Governor Ricketts and Senator Jim Smith that provides the city of Omaha an opportunity to apply for another $20 million to fix our crumbling infrastructure across the city. Another long-term approach that I've said we will take is creating a public-private infrastructure bank, something that we know at the state level is starting to pay dividends across Nebraska and brings our private, philanthropic, and development community together to help fix the city's crumbling infrastructure. The challenge that I see moving forward is that we've had for the last 4 years a mayor who's had an opportunity to develop a plan, to engage the public and really put forward a vision for this city to create the city of the future with top-notch infrastructure that ensures that people don't have to fill their own potholes, people don't have to drive on crumbling gravel streets, and I think that, as much as anything else, is the difference between me and Mayor Stothert. It's my top priority as your next mayor is developing with the community a short-term, long-term approach that's both fiscally responsible and addresses an age-old problem that we've yet to see leadership from the mayor's office on.
Mayor Stothert, you have 30 seconds.
I think it just shows that Heath Mello is not paying attention to this. The grinding up streets was a practice that was started by my predecessor, Mayor Suttle. I have stopped that. We now have a new plan that we will be a partner with the taxpayers on those roads that want to be improved, and they will not be paying for them all themselves. Another thing I do want to mention, when Heath Mello talks about raising the state's gas tax to put more money into roads, it doesn't make sense when he voted against and filibustered LB 84 in 2011 that took an existing portion of existing sales tax and diverted it to roads, which has helped greatly the roads in Omaha, and he voted against it.
Okay, Mayor Stothert, thank you. Senator Mello, 30 seconds.
Mayor, with all due respect, it's an election year, and you were in office for 4 years and allowed the city to continue to grind up people's streets across the city and then gave them a bill to fix it themselves. Just a couple weeks ago, Steve Robinson, better known as Omaha's pothole hero, has been filling his own potholes on his street for the last 4 years due to your lack of leadership in fixing a policy that truly goes back to what worked for Omaha for decades, which is filling people's potholes because they pay gas tax, wheel taxes, restaurant taxes, property taxes, and sales taxes. I think that approach is long overdue to go back to that style and that approach that works so well for the city.
Okay, the next question comes from Matt, and it goes to Senator Mello. Matt?
Most people in Omaha by now know about the big part of ConAgra leaving, but they may not know about some of the success stories from Silicon Prairie, startup companies in the Mastercraft building and along 10th Street, to events like the YP Summit in Big Omaha. What are you going to do to expand on these success stories and make Omaha more competitive to bring more tech business here instead of across the river?
Matt, that's a great question, and I think it's fitting because we just went through as a city this week Omaha Startup Week. I was fortunate enough to be able to attend their opening session on Monday, spending time with entrepreneurs, innovators, and small business tech outfits who are looking to want to build the Omaha of the future. That's why I unveiled the Mayor's Startup Agenda that looks to create not just an environment for entrepreneurs and innovators to be successful, but truly exert mayoral leadership in regards to bringing businesses together, investors, and the talent around this city to make that so. Another proposal that I unveiled during the course of the campaign was creating the city's first innovation district at the Civic Auditorium site. As I've said before, it's unfortunate that our city over the last 4 years has failed in regards to putting forth a bold vision to utilize that public site for any real major new economic development initiative. While it's been clear that there's an opportunity for a mixed-use site at the Civic Auditorium, I believe bringing entrepreneurs, tech companies, and startups in one area of our city that allows all of them to flourish, to be able to create new partnerships, new relationships, and truly create a work-live space for tomorrow's economy and tomorrow's workforce is going to change not just our downtown area, but for our city to come years in the future.
Senator, thanks. Mayor Stothert.
In the past 4 years, we have been on many top 10 lists, and two that I'm particularly proud of is we are on a list for Digital City and a list for tech hires, because we have what technology companies are looking for. The fastest growing industry right now in Omaha is healthcare. health education, and technology jobs. And we didn't just get there by sitting back and not having any plan. The Omaha Startup Collaborative is now run under the Greater Omaha Chamber of Commerce. And my office and my administration are partners with them. In fact, we give them community service dollars to help with their plans and their startups. Just recently, they had the Omaha Startup Challenge, the Jumpstart Challenge. And we actually went over there and challenged one of the young entrepreneurs with how do we, as the city of Omaha, and hopefully other cities can use it too in the future, how do we better reach out to the public and how can they better reach out to us? And we have selected a young entrepreneur to move forward with this project. In fact, we have 2 other challenges that we are going to be working with the Startup Collaborative with also. We are working with a local developer on a tech, a plaza for tech hire and for tech companies, and we are working in the North Omaha, the Nodo area where the Mastercraft building is too, and partners with the community members and philanthropists to redevelop that area too. So there has been a lot of progress as far as tech jobs and tech hire in the last 4 years, and we just want to keep on moving forward with our successes.
Mayor, thanks. Senator Mello, you have 30 seconds.
Well, unlike the mayor, I didn't just discover the tech and startup community over the last couple months during the campaign, and my legislative record's been very clear of supporting these innovators and entrepreneurs during my time in the legislature. And just the other night at the Tech Omaha event, I was able to sit down and spend time with a COO of a local tech startup company that would love to start a partnership with our city, being able to track our solid waste and trash trucks as well as our city snowplows moving forward to assist in regards to providing the public, you the taxpayers, more information in regards to these services that are being provided by the city. I think that proactive style of leadership is what's going to be needed to not just attract millennials, but keep the companies of tomorrow in Omaha.
Mayor Stothert, 30 seconds.
I'd say perhaps Heath Mello didn't listen, but we did not get on these Digital City Awards or a Tech Hire City just because of this mayoral race. We were placed on those nationwide surveys over a year ago. And so this is something that we have been working on for 4 years. It's not something that we just worked on during a campaign. And obviously the successes that we have in the community show that.
Next, we have Julie Cornell has a question for Mayor Stothert. Julie?
Thanks. Mayor, what's your vision for Omaha in 20 years? And what specifically do you plan to do in the next 4 years to invest in that future?
Absolutely. You know, again, Omaha has made great progress, and I will continue to focus on my 4 goals, and that's public safety, that's the city budget, that's economic development, and that's also modernizing City Hall and improving city services. But what I would like to see in the future is a more inclusive city. I would like to see greater neighborhood support. I would like to see a more vibrant downtown and a new riverfront as our new key signature to bring people down there every single day of the year. These are the things that and greater workforce development is something else. You know, we have an unusual problem in Omaha, and that is we don't have a job shortage, we have a labor shortage. And my administration has put great emphasis on workforce development and work training. And these are things that I want to continue working on. Our Omaha in the next 20 years, we are going to see a more vibrant downtown, and we're going to see more jobs created downtown. And these are the things that we've been working on for the last 4 years, and we will continue.
Senator Mello.
Well, I've been campaigning since last August about a vision for the next 20 years of this city. It's creating a more welcoming, more connected, more innovative Omaha. A more welcoming Omaha to our gay, lesbian, transgender brothers and sisters, to making sure that we as a city are more welcoming to immigrants and refugees who want to come into Omaha and start a business and really become part of our social fabric, ensuring that millennials and seniors alike feel that they're connected to our city, that they can travel across the entire city of Omaha without having to own a car in 20 years because we've been able to develop a mass transit system that allows people to live anywhere in Omaha and be truly connected. But really, to become the city of the future, we have to allow innovation to drive everything we do. Everything from the city services that we provide in City Hall to trying to address what we know is an ongoing challenge when it comes to creating not just the jobs of tomorrow, but the workforce of tomorrow. That's why I've been very clear that I believe for us to be able to achieve this 20-year goal that we have to be partnering more with our public school system in Omaha, particularly Omaha Public Schools, to ensure that we're providing as many opportunities to our children and families as we can, as we know we need to be able to create a workforce that's going to be changing in a very ever global economy.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothert, you have 30 seconds.
I think it's important to point out that using technology, this is something that the City of Omaha during my administration has been expanding and been very successful with. For example, snowplows were mentioned. We have had GIS on snowplows now for 5 years. So this is not something new that we're planning on doing because of a campaign. And, you know, as far as making Omaha a more welcoming community, that's what we've been talking about for 4 years. We have created so many advisory boards so that every person in Omaha, whether it's LGBT community, veterans, retirees, so that they all will have a voice, and a voice at City Hall. That's been something that's been very important.
Thank you, Mayor. Senator Mello.
Well, I think if anything, the viewers can go to heathmello.com and look at a number of our proposals that actually make this vision, I think, a reality over the next 20 years. And it wasn't that I just discovered inclusivity over the course of the campaign. I've fought for that in my time in the legislature, and we provided policy proposals to address that moving forward. But once again, being an innovative city is going to require mayoral leadership that's proactive, not reactive, and it's going to require a mayor who can engage the public in a very proactive manner instead of simply taking a step back and letting things happen around them.
All right, we have another question now from Julie, and it goes to Senator Mello. Julie?
Thanks. Senator Mello, you campaign as a champion of women's rights. Mayor Stothert, you're the first woman elected mayor of Omaha. Did you attend the Women's March? And what would you do as mayor to improve issues like pay equity between men and women?
Well, Julie, that is a great question. And yes, I did attend the Women's March. I attended the Women's March and was proud to walk with roughly 20,000 people across the city in regards to promoting equality across Omaha and ensuring that everyone has a seat at the decision-making table. Just a week and a half ago, I unveiled a proposal for workplace equity in City Hall of ensuring that moving forward that we can end pay discrimination based on former salaries or past salaries that job applicants have to provide for applying for a number of city jobs. I've also come forward with a proposal to engage the private sector, to encourage them to adopt that same kind of policy in their human resources departments. That is what we know has been a proven policy in a number of states and cities across America to address what we know is an ongoing challenge when it comes to pay equity. I've also said as part of my agenda was creating the Mayor's Talent Compact, which brings businesses, private organizations, and nonprofit organizations together to explore best practices when it comes to women in the workplace and providing more job training and more career opportunities as organizations look to develop their own human resources policies, but also in regards to promoting leadership both within their organization and within the community. I think as a young father of a 3-year-old daughter, I've made this a priority for me because I want to continue to see our city progress moving forward and ensure that when my daughter turns 18, she has as many opportunities moving forward as I did growing up in the city as well.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothert.
No, I did not attend the Women's March, and I had other commitments that day that I had already committed to. However, I thought it was very curious that as the first woman elected mayor of the city of Omaha after 50 men, that I was not asked to speak. In fact, we asked if I could speak, and I was told no. And yet the chair of the state Democrat Party was allowed to speak. And so that, to me, was a real eye-opener for me. But however, I mean, obviously, as the first woman that was elected mayor of Omaha, these issues are very important to me. And they always have been. As far as equal pay at City Hall, Heath Mello doesn't understand how jobs are posted at City Hall, and they have to be posted, and that salary has to be posted ahead of time. So anybody that applies for a job at City Hall already knows what the job is and knows what the pay is. There is no discrimination as far as women at City Hall, and there never has been. Now, there is some part-time jobs for the summer, such as lifeguards in the summer, or maybe some extra park work in the summer. The only reason they ask their past work experience, and they ask men and women that, is so they determine where they're going to be on the salary schedule. But as far as discrimination for pay at City Hall, that just does not happen. And so these are things, obviously, as the first woman, that are very, very important to me that I will continue to work on. And I hope I am just providing leadership for many women and many young ladies behind me to come in and have future positions as mayor or leaders in business in our community.
Mayor, thank you. Senator Mello, 30 seconds.
I think the mayor made part of my argument for me, that there are jobs in City Hall that allows the salary to be negotiated. And to some extent, having and requiring someone's past salary history, we know from proven research, limits in regards to the pay equity that I believe we should be striving for as a city. I think this simply is a matter of priorities. And for me, it was a priority in the Nebraska legislature of passing the first equal pay law in over a decade, because I believe this is something that speaks to our values. And we should have a mayor moving forward that values pay equity across the spectrum, whether or not it's full-time employment or part-time employment.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothert, 30 seconds.
And again, you know, our jobs are posted at City Hall. You know the salary before that they are posted, and it's the same for men and for women. It's no difference at all. And these are things that are obviously are important to us, and we will continue to work on. However, the jobs that we have at City Hall, the majority of them are negotiated, the salary, because the majority of our employees are under a labor contract and they are in a bargaining unit. And yes, when we negotiate their contracts, we are always negotiating what their salary is. But the salary is the same for men and for women.
Thank you, Mayor. Next question goes first to Mayor Stothert. It comes from Matt Tompkins. Matt?
Mayor, both yourself and Senator Mello have made promises about the restaurant tax. Now an occupation tax on new development is being discussed. Will you commit right now on the record your promise for these two taxes for Omaha citizens?
Well, I did not promise that I was going to eliminate the restaurant tax. What I promised when I ran for mayor is that I wanted to reduce the tax burden and I would not raise taxes. I made the choice, and it was the right choice in my first 4 years, to reduce the property tax levy instead. And I have done it twice for a total of 4%. And the number one tax, not only in Nebraska, but across the state, that people continue to talk about as their number one issue is property tax. And every time I've done a property tax rate reduction, you take millions of dollars out of the budget. But budgets are about mayor's priorities, and this was a priority of mine. The restaurant tax is something I still don't like, and the people don't like it either. I voted against it as a city council member. When you have to tax, it has to be broad-based and it has to be fair. And I didn't like the restaurant tax because it was targeting a certain industry, and I felt like that it could hurt that industry, the restaurant industry. That's why I voted against it. Now, again, it is still a tax that I don't like, but making a promise to say I would eliminate it, I did not do that. And Heath Mello knows I did not do that. So we will continue looking at that tax too, because it did not hurt the restaurant industry at all. In fact, it was predicted to bring $14 million a year in, and it's bringing $32 million a year in now. But it's a very unpopular tax, and it is something that I still have my eye on, and it's something that I really want to continue to work on to reduce and eliminate. Now, Heath Mello says he's going to cap it, meaning he's going to keep that restaurant tax in place.
Mayor,
I want to eliminate it.
Thank you. Senator Mello.
Well, I think the only reason this question even came up because myself and voters across the city remember Mayor Stothart's television ads 4 years ago saying that she was going to roll back Jim Suttle's tax increases. We're here now 4 years later, not just seeing the restaurant tax still on the books, but actually we've seen it expanded under Mayor Stothart's watch. I think the biggest thing that I continually remind voters about is I don't make promises I know I can't keep. And 4 years ago, voters across the city believed Mayor Stothart was going to repeal the restaurant tax. Instead, what we've seen over the last 4 years is over $110 million of that tax is being spent on city budgets. And frankly, most people don't know where the money even goes in the city budget. I've been very clear. My record in the legislature showed me cutting more property taxes in 1 year as chairman of the Appropriations Committee than all the taxes that Mayor Stothart's cut over the last 8 years in City Hall. Moving forward, I did make a promise to voters that I would cap the restaurant tax's growth because I'm convinced that's the only promise a candidate can make, particularly one who's lost all credibility on the issue because of a broken promise 4 years ago.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothart, you have 30 seconds.
Sure. You know, when Heath Mello was a state senator, when he was first running 8 years ago, he made a promise, and he said people are overtaxed, and he was going to revise the state's tax structure, and he was going to lower taxes. He voted to raise taxes. He voted to raise the state gas tax. There's a promise that has been broken. And I will say this, the restaurant tax was expanded as a request of the food truck industry, and it was approved by the city council. This was not a request of mine. This was a request in fairness from the Food Truck Association. And if you recall, when I said I wanted to reduce the tax burden, Mayor Suttle increased property taxes by 14.5%, as well as impose the restaurant tax.
Mayor, thank you. Senator Mello, 30 seconds.
Once again, this is just another example of Mayor Stothart trying to divert attention from an issue. But I will address what Mayor Stothart just said. I'm proud of working with Governor Dave Heineman of reducing income and property taxes by over $400 million back in 2014, and working with Governor Ricketts to reduce property taxes by over $128 million in 2015. Unlike Mayor Stothert, I focused on reducing property taxes and income taxes for seniors and middle-class families. And I'm proud to put my tax-cutting record against Mayor Stothart's any day of the week, because the record's very clear that we accomplished more in 1 year than Mayor Stothert has in her 8 years in City Hall.
Senator, thank you. Now, we've been asking our viewers for their questions. Several of them focused on the same topic, so I'm going to jump in and ask one. We've combined them all into this. The campaign has featured some harsh accusations, appears to have created some hard feelings between the sheriff and the police chief, the fire union and the police, even perhaps the fire chief and the fire union. If elected, how will you go about soothing these hard feelings and rebuilding the teamwork among first responders? Senator Mello, begin with you.
Well, I made a very clear statement during the primary when it felt like things were getting a little heated during the course of the campaign, and I think it's the obligation of the mayor to be able to bring people together, to sit down, close the door, and have a frank conversation about what we need to do as a city moving forward to increase and make sure our community is safe as possible. That means bringing the county government, bringing the county sheriff, the county attorney, the Omaha Police Department, the fire department, as well as the Omaha Police Officers Association and the Professional Firefighters Association, all to the table to make sure that everyone can be heard and that everyone can provide their feedback to address the concerns and challenges that they see. The biggest challenge I see right now in City Hall is a lack of leadership that's able to truly build consensus moving forward. Building consensus is not easy. I can tell you some of the most difficult challenges I had in the legislature were bringing people who opposed each other vigorously to the table to just have a conversation first and then start to find a way to build a pathway that people could come to agreement step by step, issue by issue. I think from everything from the crime lab to obviously some of the disagreement in regards to what Mayor Stothert is talking about of making up facts about Omaha Police Department statistics and response time and violent crime, as well as sitting down and working with the fire department and the Professional Firefighters Association, I believe proactive leadership, who's willing to be a convener and a facilitator, is what's going to be needed moving forward for us to be able to heal any rifts that exist right now in our public safety and first responders units.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothert.
Well, here's something I have done over the past 4 years that Heath Mello has never done. And that is I have renegotiated every one of our city's labor contracts. We have fire, police, we have our local 251, which is our big civilian union. We have 2 other civilian unions, and we have fire management and police management. You don't get all of those labor contracts negotiated and approved the first time in over a decade without being able to sit down at the table and get consensus. That's what labor negotiations are all about. And Heath Mello has never negotiated a labor contract, and they can be sometimes very, very difficult. So yes, what I do when I negotiate labor contracts, I am there fighting for the taxpayers. And that's what I do. I have got budgets under control. I've got labor contracts settled that have resulted in millions and millions of dollars worth of savings to the taxpayers. And that's what we have to do. That's what a mayor does. But to say that I don't know anything about consensus building shows you don't have an understanding of what goes on in City Hall. We work together to get those done. And you have to go back to every one of those labor contracts. They are then going to the membership of those unions, and they're approved by the unions. And the contracts that I have negotiated have been approved overwhelmingly by the unions. In fact, the police contract over 80%. That shows real consensus and real team building and really, really working together. Now, do some of them, like the fire union, want some of those sweet deals of the past? Yes, they do. And they want to go back. They want to take a step backwards where they were before. The days of retirement at age 45 and spiking. And we can't let that happen anymore.
Okay, keep moving along here. Senator Mello, you get a 30-second rebuttal.
Well, the irony of the mayor trying to use fear and scare tactics is what you just heard. I have a proven record in the Nebraska legislature of sitting down with all interested parties and renegotiating and negotiating significant compromises through consensus building of reforming defined pension benefit plans for teachers, for judges, and for state patrol officers. Things that eliminated spiking, that brought down the cost to taxpayers, and still made sure that people felt that they were receiving fair treatment and that they saw a path forward that they could believe in. That's something that I've proven in the legislature, and I'll prove as Omaha's next mayor.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothert, 30 seconds.
Saying fear tactics is just wrong. We're not talking about fear tactics. We're talking about facts. And that is what we have done. Heath Mello has never sat down with a bargaining unit and negotiated labor contracts successfully and then turned around and had those bargaining units overwhelmingly approve them. We have done this. These are difficult, but we have done it, and it shows real team building and real consensus building. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the first time in 10 years that we have agreements with every one of our bargaining units.
Thank you, Mayor. Next question comes from Julie, and it goes to Mayor Stothert.
All right. Well, the City of Omaha paid for a study to determine if library locations are best serving the community. The results haven't been made public yet. But do you have plans for the main library branch, and how will you involve the library board in that decision?
Absolutely. And yet, we will involve the Library Board of Trustees. We have done a study. It was a study that I requested of a facility, not only to look at downtown library, but to look at all of our 12 branches, what we need now and what we need in the future, and where is a good location for those libraries because of our growing population. Now that study is done. It will be presented to the Library Board of Trustees really soon. However, yes, when we are looking at downtown and we are looking at urban infill, and we are looking at 1,600 more housing units downtown since I've been mayor and 1,400 midtown, we have to look what our customers need downtown. I have been working very closely with our library director and with some of the Board of Trustees members saying, we need to move forward and say, what do we need and plan? We need our vision for downtown. We had the Dale Clark Library, which the city owns, appraised over a year ago. And that is a great spot for a development right at the end of the Jean Leahy Mall. But you have to have a plan to replace that before we would move forward and do anything. I have been saying for over 2 years that that civic auditorium site, because there's a big civic component there, would be a perfect spot for a new downtown library because of the proximity of Central High and for Creighton. And I have been working with the library director on that proposal. Now, nothing has been designed yet. We have just identified a perfect spot, and we will be engaging the community and those people that will be using that library before we ever move forward. And yes, there is a plan already of how to fund that.
Mayor, thank you. Senator Mello.
Well, I think what we just heard is another clear example of an administration that doesn't engage the public and throws out an idea with the hopes that something will stick at the wall. What I know is very clear, that there is no public master facilities plan that's been released to the public and or to the library board to be able to make the determination of what actual library services people across the city want. In my time knocking on doors in the western end of the city in Millard and Elkhorn, it's been very clear that people in the western end of the city feel and believe that they're not receiving enough and appropriate library city services. So for anyone to come out and say we need to demolish the existing downtown library and build a new library at some other downtown site when the existing facilities master plan's not been released, I believe that's short-sighted, and I believe it's irresponsible, and I believe it's just another example of this administration trying to politicize something in the middle of a campaign. What I do believe is important is allowing the library board to do their independent job and for them to be able to take that report, evaluate it, study it, and to gather public input, which is the most important thing moving forward as a city, is to engage taxpayers about what they want. They may not want a new downtown library. They may instead want smaller libraries in the western end of the city. But as mayor, I've said that is a priority for me, civic engagement, going to taxpayers first before we start to throw out radically new ideas and try to cut across the path, so to speak, without truly trying to get the appropriate feedback and the appropriate financing to make any of these projects a reality.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothert, 30 seconds.
You know, this is not being irresponsible. This is leadership. This is what a mayor does. Help work with others and help create our vision and our vision for downtown. You know, when we did the Urban Land Institute study, for example, on the waterfront, and then I was one of 3 mayors in the country that was chosen for the Rose Fellowship, just the area just west of there. We engaged dozens and dozens of people. When we did the downtown master plan, hundreds of people were engaged. We always engage the public. This is how we do things. We engage the public, we develop a vision together, and then we move forward.
Mayor, thank you. Senator Mello, 30 seconds.
Well, I think this vision's awfully convenient because the World Herald did a story at the beginning of the year showing that the Civic Auditorium site had no vision, that it simply was languishing, and the mayor threw out the idea of maybe a new downtown library at this site moving forward. I think the most important thing that all of us can take away from this is that the library board's an independent board. They have an obligation to evaluate this master facilities plan and to evaluate what really is the direction and the vision that they see the library moving forward ahead of any political figure who wants to throw out an idea in the middle of a political campaign.
Senator, thank you. Matt Tompkins has our next question, and it is for Senator Mello.
I say this now with all due respect to both candidates, but 80% of registered voters in Omaha were not inspired enough by either of your messages to show up and vote in the primary. What can you say to the majority of the people in Omaha that didn't vote to convince them to get involved and simply care?
I think what I can say is what we've been saying since I announced last August, that I'm convinced right now our city's at a crossroads, and we have an opportunity to change the status quo of how the city does business. And for me, my time in the legislature, working with South Omaha neighborhood organizations, small business organizations, other community providers, it was a very authentic civic engagement, grassroots approach of trying to bring people into the front of the conversation when we tried to solve a community problem, when we tried to address a significant issue, or wanted to see a new development occur. I think what we've seen in our city hall for too long is people get pushed to the back end of the process. The decisions are being made behind closed doors and being made and then being put out to the public, trying to sell them in regards to why this is best for them. I believe in regards to this campaign, I've enjoyed knocking on tens of thousands of doors across the city, engaging people about the city that they want to see in the future and how they can be part of that moving forward. I know that election day is a little strange. It's on May 9th. It's not a regular election, but if anything, if I'm elected mayor on Tuesday, my top priority will always be putting taxpayers first and engaging them in a process that I just simply feel they've been left out of, that their voices right now are not being heard. They're not being listened to. They're not being brought into conversations, whether it's about the streetcar, whether it's about a new downtown library, or whether it's about the riverfront. I'm convinced we can do better as a city, and as mayor, I'll make sure to put civic engagement and engaging people first as a top priority.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothert.
You know, I will continue to say that your comments about the public not being engaged is so insulting to all of our business and philanthropic leaders and community members and neighborhood associations and crime-fighting neighborhood groups, because they have been so involved and they have made so much progress. And you continue to say that they haven't been engaged, and they have. And there's some of the, you can't do things in without help and without community engagement and without everybody being at the table. And this is something we've worked so hard on. So what an insulting comment that you continue to make. However, I will remind people that in the primary, it wasn't just the two of us, there was 5 of us in the primary. And it is so typical in the city of Omaha, because we do have independent elections, for the voter turnout to be very, very low. It was 4 years ago when I ran, and it was again this time. And we just need to make sure that we really work hard to get people to get out and vote. Now, I tried to change the city elections when I did the charter convention. And you have to have a charter convention once every 10 years. It's a year that ends in 3. And one of the proposals that I submitted was to change the independent city elections to a May primary and a November general election on an off year. And my main reason to do that was to increase voter turnout. We want people coming out and vote. I want people coming out and voting. They are voting for the leadership in the city of Omaha, not just for the mayor, but for city council for the next 4 years. So that's one thing my campaign has been working very, very hard on, getting people out to vote.
Mayor, thank you. Senator Mello, 30 seconds.
Well, with all due respect, Mayor, I would hope that you would release the tens and thousands of emails and phone calls that obviously you've collected and surveys you've collected on the streetcar project or the civic auditorium or the library master plan facilities that's going to be coming out in a couple weeks. In theory, those are all major proposals that our city is undertaking right now, and I've yet to see any major real release of information that's been collected from taxpayers, as you say it has. I believe those are glaring examples of why we need change in City Hall to put people first instead of simply putting a project out and then selling it to everyone else.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothert, 30 seconds.
Again, you know, if you don't think that these sessions have been released, you're just not paying attention. The downtown master plan, that had more people working on that plan, more civic engagement than I think I've ever seen in the city of Omaha. And we continue to update it and to amend it to make it fit where we are right now. The Urban Land Institute study for the waterfront, we had an enormous amount of civic engagement, and all of those plans and all of that has been released to the public. You're just not paying attention.
Mayor, thank you. Matt has another question. This time it goes to Mayor Stothert. Matt?
Would you allow city departments to speak freely to local media outlets, or should this require permission from the mayor's office? And if so, is it appropriate for the mayor to control the public messaging of our city departments?
Yes, I think they should be, and they have been since I have been mayor. You know, we've had an executive order that came out when I first became mayor, and what it really said was, if you are going to talk to the media, just let us know. So in case the media comes back to us with a question about a department director or even, you know, an employee, a city employee, that we would know what was said so that we could respond appropriately too. But I think in the last 4 years, I don't think any media outlet has felt like that they were blocked from approaching any city employee or any department director for any reason, because they are free to talk to the media, and I think that that's important. I do think it's important, though, that they give the mayor a heads up, just so that we know what has been said and just so that we know how to respond if we're asked to respond to whatever issue it was. But I certainly don't think that anybody has seen any lack of cooperation with any of my department directors or any of the city departments during the last 4 years. They are open and free to talk to the media, and they do.
Mayor, thank you. Senator Mello.
Well, I've been very clear that I think the gag order that was released when Mayor Stothert took over, I think was offensive. And it was offensive not just to city employees, but it was offensive to taxpayers and to the media. I've said before, I'll repeal that executive order because I believe whistleblowers have an obligation inside City Hall, not just to inform the media when there's something going on that shouldn't be, but also it helps the mayor and it helps the city council and department directors do their job better. It helps build a level of trust that's needed, knowing that if something is going wrong in a department, someone can go to the media, can go to the public, and let them know without fear of retaliation. I believe as a city we should be expanding our whistleblower protections so that city employees can go forward and not be fearful of what's going to happen to them in their job, in their department, or their career moving forward. I think the only way we can truly build the trust that's needed inside City Hall with city departments and city employees is that we need a proactive mayor who can change the culture of these departments. Something I've been very strongly about, of saying that we can change this culture not just through new leadership in the mayor's office, but bringing new leadership in city departments as well. Something that I'm convinced will allow our frontline civilian employees, public safety officers, and first responders to be able to come forward with their own ideas and their own ways of solving problems without fear of retaliation from the mayor or the mayor's office, particularly when talking to the press.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothert, 30 seconds.
Obviously, Heath has not read the executive order because there is no gag order. There is no gag order whatsoever. And I think over the last 4 years, people in Omaha have seen the parks director, the public works director, the planning director, the fire chief, the police chief. They are all on television, and they are on television all the time. And the reason is I trust them. I trust all the department directors to run their departments. I'm the mayor. I trust them to run their own departments, and they talk to the media. So there is no gag order whatsoever, and they are free to talk to the media and be very transparent when they are doing it.
Mayor, thank you. Senator Mello, 30 seconds.
I'm not talking about department directors that answer directly to the mayor. What you just heard are all individuals who report to the mayor. I'm talking about rank and file police officers. I'm talking about paramedics and EMTs. I'm talking about Parks Department employees who are mowing our grasses and mowing our parks. People who are doing the frontline work who feel that sometimes we can do a better job in City Hall and they see something that shouldn't be occurring, are fearful in regards to the retaliation that may happen to them because they come forward and share that with the press. I think whistleblower protections for all city employees needs to be strengthened, not weakened like under this current administration.
Senator Mello, thank you. Go back now to Julie with a question for Senator Mello.
Senator Mello, should LGBTQ individuals be a protected class at the city level?
Julie, that's a great question, and I believe, yes, I think the LGBTQ plus community should be a protected class in the city level, and that's why I supported the existing city ordinance back when it was passed in 2012. I'm convinced some of my work in the Nebraska legislature, we tried to bring Republicans, Democrats, and independents together to try to craft a compromise to do a very similar approach at the state level. Unfortunately, we were unable to build the consensus needed to be able to move that legislation forward. But luckily, the city of Omaha has an ordinance that provides protections to the LGBTQ plus community when it comes to employment. The concern I've heard from people across the community is in regards to housing. The city's ordinance is very narrow, specifically only regarding employment and some public accommodations, where housing is something that I've heard consistently being brought up, where someone should not be discriminated against whether they rent a property or they try to buy a property simply because of who they love. I think that's something that, to create a more welcoming, more inclusive city, Omaha needs to consider moving forward if the legislature is unable to pass a more comprehensive bill at the state capitol.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothert.
The LGBTQ plus community is a protected class with the city of Omaha, and just recently when it was being discussed in the legislature, I did support that to be a protected class. Now, I will say this, as far as our ordinance that we have now, yes, it does address employment, but I have created an LGBT advisory. And we have been working with them with that group on concerns that they have in the city of Omaha so that we could address it and their voice could be heard. Just the last meeting, our Human Rights and Relations Department was at that meeting, and they brought up the issue of fair housing. And they were very relieved to understand and to find out that they are already protected. It doesn't need to be added to our ordinance, and they are protected as far as fair housing goes under federal law. But after these meetings with this LGBT advisory that I have, they have already made many suggestions to us that we are already acting on. In fact, the HRR, Human Rights and Relations Department, right now is reviewing and altering and amending a lot of the material that we have as far as fair housing and other issues to add LGBTQ rights to that. And so we are working together. We want to identify what those issues are and we want to address them. But as far as fair housing, adding it to the city ordinance, we just recently found out from our HRR department that they are already protected by the federal law and that it was unnecessary. And our LGBT advisory was happy to hear that.
Mayor, thank you. Senator Mello, 30 seconds.
Well, I think what the mayor is referring to as the fair housing component is dealing with public housing, which is true, that public housing at the federal level is protected. But in talking with a number of organizations and concerned citizens around the city, private housing is not protected. And I think that is why we've seen an effort in the legislature to expand rights and equality through LB 173 this year, but unfortunately that policy did not pass. I believe the city is going to need to consider stepping in if the legislature is unable to pass a more comprehensive state law that includes both employment and private housing moving forward.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Stothert, 30 seconds.
I would just say again that we have an open dialogue with the LGBTQ community, and they were informed by our HRR department that they are protected as far as fair housing as according to federal law. But I want to make it very clear again, a lot of the suggestions that they are making, we are changing what our information is that we give out to everyone in the community as far as these types of issues, as far as fair housing. And we are adding the LGBT community to it too. We want their voice to be heard. We want to hear their concerns, and we are working together. And together we will make Omaha a better place.
Mayor, thank you. Now we're to our final question of the evening here. It's going to come from Matt Tompkins. I want to say there will be 1 minute answer, no rebuttal. 1 minute answer, no rebuttal. Matt, you have the first question. It goes to Mayor Stothert.
I can count about 11 panhandlers on my way to work each day. Is panhandling an issue on your agenda for the next 4 years? And what would you do or could you do to make intersections safer for both them and those in traffic?
Yes, it is a real concern to me and to our police department too, and to our city prosecutor also. And as the weather gets warmer, we see more and more panhandling. It is protected, however, ruled by federal court that it is protected free speech. We cannot ask panhandlers to move off of a right-of-way or a median. And that has been shown in federal court. Now, what the city of Omaha has done, though, is we have passed an aggressive panhandler ordinance, and we did that several years ago. And that addresses aggressive behavior, knocking on windows, touching people, coming up to people, obstructing their car, going to bank machines. And we already have that in city ordinance to address those issues and make it unlawful. Now, we are also working with our city prosecutor to see if there's a way that we can address it just as an issue of public safety that would pass the constitutional muster. So we are still working on it. We realize that it is a public safety issue, and hopefully we can come up with some revised ordinance that would pass the constitutional muster.
Okay, Mayor, thank you. Senator Mello, you have 1 minute.
I've been very clear that I think the mayor and me both see this as a significant issue facing the city moving forward, but yet, as you just heard, we are limited due to federal court cases in regards to protecting First Amendment rights. I believe the opportunities that are available for the city is to look and evaluate best practices from other cities and states around the country, such as the state of Oregon that look to address this panhandling issue by looking in regards to public safety issues as it relates to obstructing traffic, something that we know we can see on major intersections, whether it's on 72nd and Dodge or whether or not it's at 42nd and Center. We see these kind of activities happen on a very regular basis. But it will take, I think, some very unique conversations in City Hall to be able to find a legal approach to make sure whatever we do moving forward is not unconstitutional. Because I think that people across the city realize this has become a major issue that we need to address, but we also have to be mindful of not trying to infringe on anyone's First Amendment rights.
Senator Mello, thank you. Our questioning of the candidates is complete. Now it's time for their closing remarks. They get 2 minutes for that. Again, as determined by a coin flip. Jean Stothert goes first, Mayor.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to KETV, and thank you to COIL for hosting tonight, and thank you to all the voters that are out there listening right now. If you haven't made up your mind who you're going to vote for on Tuesday, I'll make my final pitch tonight. It is such an exciting time to serve as the mayor of Omaha and been serving as your mayor for the last 4 years. The spirit of cooperation between individuals and groups out there is so strong and so positive right now. We are going in the right direction. Omaha is a safer city than it was 4 years ago. The budget is under control. We have lowered the property tax rate. The economy is booming right now. 56,000 building permits at a value of $2.9 billion shows the city is growing. And we have modernized City Hall, making city government work better for you and making city services improved to give you much better service than you've had before. We have been on many top 10 lists in the past 4 years. Best place city to raise a family, to retire, best place for millennials, best place to find a job. And those things just didn't happen by chance. That happened with a lot of hard work and a lot of people working together to move this city forward. And we weren't that way 4 years ago. In the next 4 years, I will continue on my relentless focus on public safety and making the city safer. But I also want to work on making the city of Omaha a more inclusive city. I want greater neighborhood support. Great neighborhoods mean a great city. More workforce development, infill and develop our downtown, and a new signature as the riverfront. I am very pleased and grateful to have been endorsed by the Omaha World Herald and many, many others, because they're endorsing me because they want nothing in return. They're endorsing me because they want good, effective, transparent government. Now, Omaha is a great city, and together we can make it extraordinary. I ask for your vote on Tuesday, May 9th.
Mayor, thank you. Senator Mello, 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Matt, and KETV and COIL for hosting tonight's debate. As some of you may know, I grew up the son of a factory worker and a house cleaner, and my parents instilled in me some very fundamental values, the values of hard work, taking responsibility for your actions, looking out for those less fortunate than yourselves, and to live by the golden rule. And when I announced my candidacy to be Omaha's next mayor about 7 months ago, I was motivated by 2 main reasons. The first reason was I just came to the belief that the city of Omaha needed to have a unifying aspirational vision for the future, that we needed to have a vision that sought to expand opportunity in every single zip code in the city and made Omaha truly more welcoming, more connected, and more innovative. The second reason was something that was just a bit more personal, was my wife Catherine and I's 2 little babies at home, in regards to what we, not just as parents, but what we as the city is going to be leaving them as they grow older over the next 20 years. I'm running for mayor because I truly believe right now our city is at a crossroads, and that right now we have some very urgent issues that we have to address. Rising crime rates, rising response times, our crumbling infrastructure, the loss of a major corporate headquarters and not seeing major employers move downtown. These are urgent issues that need new leadership. Leadership that has the energy, leadership that has the vision, and the ability to bring people together and build consensus to build a better Omaha, not just for the next 4 years, but for the next 20 years. I've run a very positive, inclusive campaign because I believe in this city. I believe in this city because this is where I'm going to be raising my kids and raising our family in South Omaha for years to come. I'd be honored to have your support on Tuesday's general election and would just urge you to get out and vote. Thank you so much.
Senator Mello, thank you very much. That concludes our debate. We'd like to thank our partner, News Talk 1290 KOIL, Matt Tompkins, and of course, our own Julie Cornell. Also want to thank the candidates. Thank you, Mayor Stothert, Senator Mello, very much for taking time to debate so close to the election. I'm Rob McCartney. Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening and make sure you vote on Tuesday.